I always felt like I saw and heard ghosts, and I've been quite sensitive since I was a child, but I think it's always like spooked me. I've never gone there because of that. And so I was quite proud that I allowed myself to open up and be open to the experience and allow Dad in the spirit world come through and talk to me. My sister, who was also struggling at the time, my youngest sister, she booked it in with somebody separate the next week. And they said the exact same things.
Hi, and welcome to The Soft and Curious with me, Jessica Leigh. Hopefully, some of these conversations can inspire thoughts and ideas that can potentially have the power to change your mind on a subject or change your entire experience of this life. Now on to the show. Hello, everyone. I wanted to introduce my guest today, and she is Penelope Benson. Oh, wait, she changed her name. Actually, I'm going to keep that because she's been Penelope Benson to me for so many years, but she is Penelope Svoronos, and her name has changed recently, and that is to honor her father, who recently passed away. And he was a phone book Greek, I think we say, which is someone who immigrated to this country, or whose parents rather immigrated and had, an ethnic sounding last name and changed their name based on the phone book. They opened up a page and Benson resonated. And since he's passed away, or while he was still with us, she was in the process of changing her name to honor her heritage. And so she is Penelope Svoronos. And I'm still getting used to saying it. But that's what we're going to talk a lot about today. We're going to talk about my best friend P and her journey in the last year, which has been dealing with her grief, which has come on since losing her father in February. And I always think with grief, as someone who has lost my father also, and I know many people out there, once you sort of get into your 30s especially, it's sort of that age where it becomes less and less uncommon for people around you to lose loved ones. And I think grief is such an important thing to deal with your community and talk to your friends and stay open. And Penelope is someone who is so open. She is kind of this mystical witch in my life in the best possible way, who just, I feel like, sees the magic in everything. And she hasn't really ever lost her twinkle for believing in the supernatural and the magical and the very, very special. And so we discuss not only her grief, but also how she has looked across and all over the world for signs and messages that have come to her to help her come to terms with her life without her father. I wanted to speak about this Leo Tolstoy quote, which is, "Only people who are capable of loving strongly can also suffer great sorrow. But this same necessity of loving serves to counteract their grief and heals them," which I think is just so poignant and powerful. And I know that people have talked in the past about how grief is the price you pay for loving someone so deeply. And P and I sort of discuss how maybe our loved ones never really leave us. And that is the philosophy which helps us move on through life, experiencing not only the sadness that maybe our loved ones have gone, but a bit kind of an ability to still enjoy life. I hope you enjoy this soft and curious conversation with myself and Penelope Svoronos. Hey, P-Dog.
Hey, JBL. Not that I ever call you that.
You never call me
Jessica.
that. You always call me Jessica. Always. You're like my brother and sister.
Yeah.
You never ever really call me Jess.
No.
Never. You call me Jessica. And I really call you Penelope. I think I call you P sometimes.
It's all right. We're just loosening up.
Yeah.
Just calling each other the names. Good start.
How is it? I haven't seen you in like a month, more than a month. How long? 3 months.
I last saw you. You left me in August.
In Greece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Early
did.
August.
So it's been like 3 months.
Yeah.
That feels fucking
It's
weird.
wild.
It
It went
doesn't
really
feel
quickly
like that.
last.
And before that, I didn't see you for like 6 months.
Yeah.
I know we've been a bit apart this year.
Now it's Christmas.
Okay, what are your resolutions? I hate that shit. But you've had a big year. You've had a big year. Yeah, you've had a bit of a winter of a year, even though you've avoided winter completely.
It's been a long, long winter.
Yeah.
Years of winter. No, I shouldn't say that. But I feel like everyone's had a big year. I tend to not really, divert from the spotlight. But I should give myself, I guess this is you interviewing me today, but yeah, it's been a big year.
It's on you.
Yeah.
But also, it's more, I think everyone should know the backstory is like P and I have been friends since we were in our late teens.
Mm-hmm.
We met at a club.
Are you Penelope?
Yes.
No. It was more like, are you Jessica?
And then we got to being friends. And yeah, we haven't really parted since, which is nice. Lived in all these different countries together. I feel like every time you go somewhere, I end up there anyway.
Yeah, or vice versa.
Yeah, Greece was really fun this year. That was a fun part. But I feel like in Italy, we finally made it to Italy together because your brother and sister live in Italy.
We did.
And I've been promising to go for so long.
It was yeah. We've had some special times for sure.
Yeah. Tell me about your year. How did it start and how have you, because you've covered a lot of ground, I feel.
Well, I guess I'll start from the very beginning. So my father passed away in February. He fell ill a few years ago. It was in 2020. So I think it was that his illness was very much part of those, years or themes that we all went through at the same time. So that
like the pandemic period.
And yeah, so his journey kind of just coincided with all those things as well. So not saying it was harder than anyone else's couple of years, but it was just what it was in my experience. So it kind of happened early 2020. And then so I moved down to Sydney. I was living in Byron for about 6 or 7 years prior to then. I'd also met somebody and my agency at the time was down there. So everything brought me down there and so hung out with him for a couple of years just to put it all into a nutshell.
Yeah.
And he eventually passed in February after, I don't know if 2 or 3 years is a long road on the spectrum of like roads of, the road of illness. But like for us and him, it's pretty long to suffer, I feel.
And it really was a traumatic suffering. Cancer is not easy for anyone ever, really. But it's like, it seemed particularly cruel.
No, absolutely. And he nearly died. Is it okay to say that? He nearly died multiple times with his illness. He had stage 4 bowel cancer. So, but look, it was a testament to his character. But in the end, he really, and he even said it to me 6 months before he died when one time he nearly died 6 months. He told me, he said to me, that's when I was particularly taken, not ready, I guess, for that to happen. I think I begged him one night at the hospital, I was like, don't die. And he was just like, I'm trying. I think I really believe that somebody's will does really play into how long they last. So he had a lot to live for. So anyway, he passed away in February and I always knew when he did eventually pass away that I was going to go away. So I'd been meaning to travel for a few years when a relationship didn't work out in 2020. Even though my dad was ill back then, it was still, it was manageable and he hadn't been given a death sentence. So I was actually planning to move overseas in 2020, but because of everything, pandemic, dad, whatever, I didn't get to go until this year. So I knew as soon as that happened, I would probably go not long after. And so I basically fled in February because I felt that if someone else got sick in my life or something else terrible happened whilst I was in Australia, I wasn't going to be physically able to take care of that person, just because of everything that we had been through as a family and personally. You know, I will say, you know, quite openly, like my father his illness became my identity. I didn't really have a social life for a very long time. Like, yes, I had moved my life down there. But when it got really really bad, we were by his bedside, not just in the hospital towards the end, but that last year was just.
I think the thing is that's a very natural thing, isn't it? Like, and it's not something that everyone can step up to do sometimes, especially if their lifestyle doesn't permit it. And like when you work for yourself, you can kind of, be there a lot more, which I think you did. You like very much, I think when you say that like his illness became your identity, I think you very much, you were taking care of, as were so many other people in your family, but you were taking care of someone who could no longer, take care of what they needed. And I think that that's so beautiful because, I've personally, when my dad died, which was with no notice, my father passed away, for everyone listening, in 2019. He had a heart attack and died very suddenly with no notice. And yet I wasn't there caring for him or anything, but I felt the need to like get up and move and like change my scenery. And I went home to New Guinea, to be with my family and everything like that, and stayed for quite a while. And then I think it's interesting that you went to Greece. And that's where your dad's from and where you stayed for such a long time. So I think that that's just such a natural instinct that a lot of people don't or can't afford themselves to like, go back to your roots sort of thing after grief.
Yeah. I mean, I feel really it's after everything, all the tears and whatever and what's to come, I've had the most blessed year as well. So yes, I feel like, as I said, after all that, I still feel I haven't written my apology letters to everyone I've met or known in the past years who I have not been able to give time to, or have just had to constantly say no to. So I will still do that. But like, yes, I've essentially been going back and forth from Athens. I've kind of been based in Athens for the past few months, but been returning or moving around Greece for about the last 6 months, if we're going to take it.
But I feel like you've been there and then you've been kind of just going into, like, it's almost like physically you're there, but you're also, and I don't want to make this like a, podcast about grief and everything, but I do think that it's
same
important.
Time. I feel like it's like
so encapsulating of like what actually, when it happens to you, when you lose a parent, you don't realize, like, especially if you're close with them. I mean, I think I've spoken to people who weren't really close with their parents.
Why don't we make it about grief? I think we're both pretty articulate in it.
Let's just. I mean, I want to. I mean, well, yeah. I think it's good for people to hear how some people process, and I think the way that you've kind of processed this year has been really incredible. Like, watching you go through it, because I know as someone who went, it's funny because as
I just couldn't do it here.
Yeah, and as a circle of friends, it's like a few of our friends have lost their fathers in a row. I think we're
the Dead Dads Club.
I know. The most terrible club that you do not want to join, but somehow they've got this fucked up membership. I know. But it is. It's
He's
like,
fine.
They're fine. No, but I think it's really interesting to watch all of my friends, especially after it happened to like me, and it happened to people before me as well, like my cousins and stuff like that. But I think to go through it in friendship group is really interesting, and watching people go on their path and just like living in allowance of someone in grief. Like, I think allowing them to move if they want, or not move, or just fucking sit there. Like, or throw themselves into so many different things, good or bad for them. Like, even good relationships, bad relationships, good jobs, bad jobs.
Just allow them to be human. I think that's how I've looked at, you and the other girls the past few years. It's just like when those things happen, I think that the compassion that should always be there,
it finally arrives.
And then you go, and everything's just like,
you just
I
live
think
in
we're hard
allowance.
on ourselves. We're hard on our friends. We expect a lot from, the people that are close to us. So I think it's,
I do think that too. And it's only because you want the best for people that you can sometimes live in that like little judgy state. But it's been really interesting how almost 3 years in a row or more than that, lost a parent. or in the process of losing one, and then
proceed with caution.
Yeah.
Everyone's
But we've all just been like, you know, living in this strange allowance of each other, and it's because we have this like innate understanding. And obviously we lost our fathers in really different ways. But it's I hate it. I hate this stage of life where, you know, you feel like you're going to get that call from a friend. But I also think that it's like the only purpose, I think, of grief or having grief is that you can kind of help someone else going through it. That's literally the only fucking point.
I also think as well, it does remind me of, not to make it extra morbid, but buckle up, it might just head that way. But when I was unwell, when I was 25 as well, I only really, not because they were like me, but I was actually only genuinely interested in people that were going through or had gone through what I was going through. So I had Hodgkin's lymphoma when I was 25, and there wasn't really social media around then, but there were forums and online groups and things like that. And when I also just met people who, in that, you know, when it naturally came up in conversation, like I was only really interested in people who had like, you know, experiences like mine. So it's similar in this instance. And it's funny, I think I spoke about this with you earlier in the year, but the people that naturally came into my life, or I was speaking to at events or parties or whatever around those months, you couldn't make this shit up. It was just people who like, that's happened, you know, I've also lost a parent, or like, it was, nothing's a coincidence, but it was funny. And I was really grateful for that, because that really helped. And you know what? I hate to say it, but it's helped having you as a friend, and you go before me, and, you know, the girls, Ruby and Harriet, go before us as well. Unfortunately, it has really helped, because I haven't felt so alone.
100%. I feel like it was like only someone who told me on the day of my dad's funeral, this person just said to me, I just want you to know that it's going to feel better. Like, I'm proof. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, it was actually, it's such an interesting, like you just almost don't want to go up and like evangelize to anyone. Like, your life's going to be fine and you're going to be great. And like, you know, because you want to
coming from the person with a like nuclear family still intact.
Yeah. But you want them to also, but when it happens to you, you're like, I just want you to know, like, you know, it's pretty fucking shit, but you're going to be okay. But I just think that I think more practically though, has there been like books that you've read, podcasts you've listened to, words that have gotten you through like more than, you know, while you've been, because I feel like you've been kind of you're always like a ferocious consumer of like information and reading and everything like that.
Sempre nonfiction. Yes, and personal development. Although I have read a couple of books in the past year that I think they were based on true stories. That's probably as close as I'll get to anything that's made up. One of the most beautiful books, actually, that I did finish. It was, and I wrote it down at the time. He hadn't passed away yet, but I felt, because of this experience I was having, or phenomenon, I should say, of people coming into my life who were like, I've lost it. It was just, as I said, you couldn't have made it up. I wrote it down saying you can recognize a face. I felt like, you could recognize somebody that had lost somebody close to them, because you could just see it in their faces. And I think I might have said it to you. And then anyway, I bought it early on when I got to Greece in May. It's hard to find English books there. Not hard, but good ones that you want to read, and especially for me. Like, anyway, so I bought Joan Didion, The Year of Magical Thinking. Oh, yeah. So it's about it's the year when she lost her partner, her long time husband. And I originally thought, because I know that she lost her daughter as well, I originally thought it was going to be about losing both of them, but it was just about losing John. And anyway, so she basically is just talking about her experience and her thoughts. I think she's just probably neurotic as we are, but like she's honestly like thought about everything as far as like, you know, death and grief. And she wrote this, she's in one of her chapters, she said the same thing, that along the lines of, you can tell in someone's face that when someone's lost somebody, or anyway, that was a really helpful book because I guess it just, wasn't, our experiences weren't identical, but it's just, you can just be like, oh yeah, I went through that and I'm going through that now. Like I was absolutely looking for lifelines. I saw a medium.
I know. That's what I wanted to talk to you about, because I think that like that's one of the ways in our friendship that we really differ is that like first of all, I totally believe in ghosts. I have seen them. I've felt them. I am but I'm pretty woo-woo adjacent in the fact of like when I come, like I feel like when I'm in foreign countries that are very like, I don't know, I'm more open. And then, I'm not really into psychics or anything like that. But I think I've only ever seen a psychic with you. And she said I was closing myself off. I can't even remember what she said, but she was like, she's like, did you know the girl that came in before you? Because, I feel similar energy, but like you're just so closed off. And it was pretty interesting.
Where was this?
That was in Byron.
I know. She's
no good.
She's terrible.
Yeah. Well, anyway, she didn't really give us much, but this is where we differ, is because you go right into that like world. Like I have to always ask you to be my kind of translator of star signs and human design and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, very good.
Which is great.
Surprised you didn't start off with astrologically profiling me, but that's okay.
Do you want to tell everyone what you are?
I am an Aquarius sun. Of course. Aquarius sun, Gemini rising, if you can't tell, and Cancer moon.
Yeah.
I can go on, but I won't.
And
for the sake of this not being about that. And I'm a
horrified.
Projector, 3/5 splenic projector in human design.
Beautiful.
Yeah, anyway.
And aren't we the same in human design?
Projectors, yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of rest.
Yes.
Only, good for working 2 to 3 hours a day at best.
Because we come up with like, because people like drink our sparkle. That's what I heard.
They suck us dry, and because we don't have access to our own energy, we get it from other people. But,
so we need to go away and
we are also the guys of the world. So like people do come to us, and but we're
What are our bad qualities?
If we are aligned, we're only meant to come down. Like we're like a little bird in the tree that comes down because I can see everything, what's going good, right and wrong. So we're meant to come down, momentarily from our perch, tell everyone what to do, what's going, and then go back up and rest.
Yeah.
And put our feet up. But anyway.
That is very me.
I digress. I've always wanted to say that as well. On a podcast.
Making all your dreams come true today. What have been the most profound times that you've seen a medium? I'm curious because I feel like you have some seriously like spooky experiences.
I've seen this year was the first medium I've seen. I mean, I've seen a lot of like future projectors when I say like, psychics and
they're different
tarot readers, but mediums are people who can speak to people who have passed or in the spirit realm. But yeah, that is because the reason why I did it though, I've always been pretty spooked by that section of the new age. But going back to that time, I was still in Italy and I was suffering quite a bit, and there were a few things that happened in the moment that he died that stayed because I was with him, and I saw and stayed with me. And I was having, it's so actually cliche, I was kind of having flashbacks. And so those flashbacks were kind of telling me like he's suffering, he's still suffering, he didn't want to die.
Because I think you had some PTSD, I think, for sure, like flashback type stuff.
Yeah, I think there were just some things. He basically, a tear fell from his eye, as he died, and there are a couple of other things. And he always vocalized that he never wanted to die, and it scared him. And so that kind of like all came up during the Italy period, and so that's why I read. Actually, no, I didn't read that book yet. I was just like, what can I do? And I knew that was available to me, but it still spooked me.
So medium is more like that John Edwards guy, like that guy on TV, remember?
They're the medium. They're the person between you and it.
Okay.
And so, but basically, so I thought about it, but I didn't book anything in. But it was funny. I was in Taormina, and I got an email from a really well-known psychic in Australian psychic who lives in Mexico saying, "Congratulations, you've reached the top of the waiting list. Follow these like links if you want to book." And I was like thinking to myself, when did I put my name down for this?
Because some of them are so in demand and like they make you like join these long ass waiting lists. It like 3 years.
I think it might have only been a year, but like that only would have taken me back to last May, which is, I don't know why. I think I had maybe signed up for it more for a psychic reading because anyway, so that rolled around. It really spooked me.
Because you don't remember even signing up.
And it was at the time where I was thinking about it, and I was also just really like worrying how Dad was and if he was okay, and having a hard time. So I sat with it for a few days, and I, built up the guts to book in. And so anyway, I had this. I would actually say, out of all the mystical experiences I have had with other people, like a third party, I would say that has the medium I saw in May was the most profound and really actually helped me, because basically the takeaways were, and he absolutely came through because he was talking about, because my sister and I were both in Italy at the time, he had a lot of messages for her, and that was the reason why I knew it was him, because he was talking about tattoos of birds on arms and pointing to, they were just things that were
too specific.
Really. And so I would have to say that would have been the most profound experiences, because also I'm not just sitting opposite somebody and, no matter how good they are and how many wonderful psychics I've seen in the past, this is such a new experience for me, which I've really allowed myself to. Like, I always felt like I saw and heard ghosts, and I've been quite sensitive since I was a child, but I think it's always like spooked me. I've never gone there because of that. And so I was quite proud that I allowed myself to open up and be open to the experience and allow Dad in the spirit world coming through and talk to me. And also my sister, who was also struggling at the time, my youngest sister, she booked it in with somebody separate, I don't know, somewhere else in the world the next week. And they said the exact same things. So,
and they weren't,
even the way that Dad came through.
Vague. Like, they weren't vague things. I know you've told me you don't have to say it publicly, but like, yeah, they're not vague things that they've
very specific. And like, Dad would like the way that he came through. It was honestly like the medium was saying a script both times.
But was that helpful? Like, is that helpful?
Basically, Dad he came through. He was with his best friend. Honestly, like, it sounds crazy and ridiculous, but he had to go. In the end, like, Dad has like, I've got to go now. And he was going. And so basically the message was Dad was fine. He was reconnecting with his best friend, his uncle. He was having a great time. And the same with my sister. It was just like Dad had to, and he was doing, because Dad had really, really low mobility in the end, like Dad would just do like thumbs up and peace signs when you like said hello or when, and that's what was happening. So Dad's like, you got to go. Like the psychic said, or medium said, your dad's got to go now, or your dad's here. Or whatever, and he's giving you the peace signs, giving you the thumbs up. So Dad, it's like Dad, he was being obviously dragged through the mud for a few years. That's what he went through. And this is what I believe. I believed this before I knew how he felt up there. But I believe where a majority of us go, hopefully all, that it's a place of pure bliss. I just needed to know that my dad was okay, because what I saw in the end, I was worried that he was kind of, he might be here. I don't know if you've ever seen Intergalactic and like they're in the other dimension.
Yes.
And he's just here and he's like, help me, get me out. So basically, I honestly...
You needed to see confirmation of peace.
Yeah, and it didn't dry my eyes completely. Like, I think I still went through a bit of a weird, but it really, really, really helped. All I needed to know, if Dad's okay, like I'm real about it. I was real about it. Like, he's not here. He hasn't been here for a few months. But I was like, as long as he's not suffering. And so
you just felt some energetic peace.
Absolutely. And
I agree with that, because I was just going to say, like, my dad was the same. Like, I didn't see anyone for it, but I had to really meditate. And yeah, I've never wanted, because I've never really lost anyone where I was so close and I've needed that peace. Like, I've always just trusted. But I think when you know someone and you just like know what it looks like to see them cry or sad or wince or, you know what I mean? Like you just kind of like, I need confirmation of peace.
Yeah.
I got it as well with like, and the way my dad kind of said it to me was like, you got to let me go. Like, you're just not letting me go. And if you're making me stick around, I can't get on with what I got to do here. And it was I remember telling you that before, and it was like, it's such a peaceful feeling. Like, it's like finality. And you can be like, okay, they're actually gone. If I bring them back here, it's like just for this special stuff. Like, they just want to see love and bliss and happiness. They don't want me to see this worried, scared, like, like also, anxiety.
It's, what I was trying to really, really acquaint myself with and get used to is like, it's a natural part of life. And so, but also, so I really was doing my best to accept that this is what happens and it's going to happen again. And to other people that if I don't go first, but like, but it was just that thing not that final stage, because I still feel like I'm in it, but it was just like that. It was just part of just needing to know that he was okay. And yeah, people might think I'm crazy, but it really helped. And then,
no, I think whatever can get you to that peace is like, is fine.
But I think as well, I had some pretty crazy experiences, not with mediums, but when I went to Greece and up until last week before I had left, he was still around. I had some pretty, it has been a really crazy year as far as things that you can't make up.
I think they always spiritually pop in and out.
Oh, yeah.
What can you say?
Oh, I woke up I was telling my mum, because haven't seen mum since the start of the year as well. So I'm just telling her all my ghost stories this week. But when I first got to Greece, I went to Hydra basically straight away. And I woke up one morning to someone hugging me.
What?
Hugging me in bed from behind, like spooning but hugging in a friendly way, in a loving way.
Like a feeling of someone doing that.
Holding my body.
Yeah.
And it actually didn't feel like a warm, like a light or anything behind me. It felt like someone was in bed behind me. And I would speak to my sister who lives in Italy almost every day because we're on the same time zone. And that morning she called me and she goes, "You'll never guess what happened this morning. The weirdest thing happened to me." She goes, "Dad was hugging me in bed." And then in there I was like, no, Dad was hugging me. So there's been like little things like that. And then lots of coincidences and even up until, I don't know, it sounds silly. And I think I shouldn't say that because it means a lot to me. And even if it is silly and it's not true, I have these little things, coincidences, if you will, or as I said, I believe that there's none. They have helped me create meaning in a year that doesn't really make sense or,
I reckon there's something to that because I've read things. I read something recently. I can't remember where it was. I'm so hopeless at saving stuff sometimes. But I read something that said when you're looking for answers and you're truly open, like you're just going to be looking for, you just need to be open because you're it's
everywhere.
Everything will be, confirmed, like, and it is true. It's just like you just got to stay open, especially when you're in grief. And I think that's what grief reminds me to do. It reminds you to stay open because you really don't have any fucking choice. Like the whole thing is just happening to you anyway. So you may as well just stay open and let it kind of pass through you instead of having like these resistances because that's actually not the point of being here. You're supposed to experience life, not control it.
Absolutely. And looking back, to your point, I wish I didn't hold back, whether I was in the street, sucking back tears, or if I just didn't want to go anywhere at that day, or because there were a lot, I've had a cliche year, but like, it's true. That whole thing about not wanting to get out of bed is a thing. I had such high social anxiety. I thought people were looking at me all the time. I didn't want to go out, I only wanted to drink and smoke and, I took myself to Europe. I didn't want to be like, I've resisted most of the year, but I look back now and I wish I just let myself be a little bit of a mess. And
totally.
maybe, I
think you do. I think you're doing a good job. I think that's you're being, because I think you're doing a good job. I also think that's such a good thing to say to anyone who's feeling anything, any kind of grief, even if it's, a breakup or, even if it's like, job or whatever, like, there's different parts of life where you can feel such severe disappointment. And I think, you know what I have learned from like living in grief is fucking cry anywhere. Like just do it. It's not as bad as you think. You can cry absolutely anywhere and people will go, "Are you okay?" And you just say, "No, I'm actually not okay. Like something's happened to me."
Yeah,
and
they tell people.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where I've made nice connections when I look back now to like specific parts of the year where I've opened myself up, or just, I met some really lovely people and some guys and some girls and whatever. But, even a guy I met on Tinder, like he happened to like have so much, end up becoming really great friends. But the more I opened up and told my story, it was just like, was the more I heard a similar one back to me about, someone losing the person I was speaking to, losing someone's, or similar story. Yeah, and it really just allowed, and that's where I feel like where I was resisting people or places, when I opened up to it, I saw the lesson. I sound pathetic, but like
no, you don't.
And honestly, that's what has really helped me. I have been on a journey, but I think helped me create meaning.
Yeah, but I think the opposite is true as well, which is like cry anywhere, but also laugh anywhere. Like if you're ready to laugh like 3 seconds after hearing terrible news, do it. Like there's no rules. Like, some things are just funny and like they just happen. Like I remember
that dad's cop. Yeah.
What?
It's terrible.
Yeah, no, but it's like it is. It's like just laugh anywhere too. And I think you've done a good job of that. I think we've had some lull times in the past year.
Yeah.
It was like as well. I think you're supposed to experience the whole spectrum of emotion. You can't just like live in one negative kind of aspect of it all. Which is,
Absolutely.
And you've been writing poetry.
I'm just trying to write some happy stuff.
I never want to be like, and I know you don't either, I don't want to be like the grief girl. I don't love sharing, oversharing sometimes, but I do think that it's important to share. I posted this quote. Oh my God, where is it? I hate it when I can't find things and when I can't. I'm such a bad like rememberer.
Oh, from the Paris Review.
Who says, who was it? Was it
those who have the courage to write anything or
was
something?
Was it Edgar Allan Poe? Who was it who said it? Yeah, and it just said, I have, E.B. White. I admire anyone who has the guts to write anything at all, which I think is just so true.
It's like that quote of Love Actually, which I think about often, but I can't remember the characters' names, but woman is speaking to her friend, man friend who's just lost his wife, and she says, "Come on, blah, 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 like no one wants to shag someone that's crying all the time."
Yes.
And that lives rent-free in my head, or has this year. So, I let myself get it out, but it's not me as much as I think it is me, that I can kind of like see through bullshit and be real. And I actually don't, like that cynical part of me.
I think though,
but I also like, no, I'm capable of more, and no one wants to shag someone that's crying all the time.
I think, what's her name? It was to Liam Neeson's character.
Yeah.
It was Emma Thompson to Liam Neeson.
Fucking brilliant.
Stop crying all the time. No one
wants to shag anyone's crying all the time. And that's just stayed with me since I probably saw that when I was 12, and I was like,
isn't it funny, some of the movie lines that stay in your head and you're just like,
here in Byron, actually.
Yeah, really? Up here. That was so iconic. I watch that every Christmas still. I love it. Thank you for coming on, P.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Thanks for listening to me.
You're welcome. Just excited.
Crack jokes into the bad desk, into the microphone.
Well,
but yeah, no.
Come back anytime.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. All the best.
Let's wrap up. That's it. Thank you for spending this time with yourself and the soft and curious. If you enjoyed, please rate and review this episode and share it with your friends. It's how we grow. I hope you're feeling joyful and kind. This episode was made on Bundjalung country. It was produced and presented by me, Jessica Lay, and technical production and arrangement by Podpaste. Thank you to Blueberry Music Studio, where we record.